Hi, I'm Andrea Perron. We're here at the Ocean State Paracon in Harrisville, Rhode Island. We are in the bowels of the Assembly Theater, down in the old dressing rooms, in the male dressing room actually, which was more spacious than the female, as I remember being an actor here for so many years with the Theater Company of Rhode Island. But today we're here celebrating Paracon 2016, the OSPC, which is one of the largest events not only in New England but nationally. And it is our great good fortune to have a few minutes to spend with Samantha Hawes, who is here. Is this your first visit to?
It's my first visit.
Okay, excellent. It's just really such a pleasure to meet you. I know you grew up being surrounded by the paranormal, your father being Jason Hawes, and your father and John Zaffis and his crew, TAPS at the time, were the first to investigate the farm where I grew up for television. What are your recollections of that time, and how was it like growing up paranormal?
Growing up, looking back now, I can say it was different. It was a unique childhood. At the time, it's what it's normal. It's weekends, the team is meeting at a local coffee shop and going over their case files and planning their locations and where they're going to go and evidence, and those were all normal things to me. And I don't think it was until about junior high, middle school, the show started filming, and word got out. Rhode Island's a pretty small state. We lived in the city at the time, and word got out. We had a trailer in the front yard, and that's what they were filming out of. So very quickly, I learned this wasn't a field a lot of people knew anything about. And Middle school's hard enough, but it's a little harder when not only does Dad have a TV show starting, but your dad hunts ghosts. He's a paranormal investigator. That's strange. Not everybody does that. So it was definitely, for a little bit, made me feel like an outcast. You already feel like an outcast as a middle schooler, but having something like that. But, looking back now, it was just so great to be a part of, and to be a part of something that I think, not because of the show specifically, but just in general, turned into this movement of people who no longer felt crazy. They were going out and they were talking about these things because it was becoming more mainstream, and nowhere near as mainstream as it is now. Us sitting here discussing this years ago wouldn't have been as likely, but here we are at Ocean State Paracon with, hundreds of people that want to sit and talk about this. And it's great. Looking back, I couldn't have asked for a better childhood with more just surprising moments.
Do you feel drawn to the field in terms of your own research, in terms of what fascinates you?
Definitely. And I think a lot of it, I'm sure you've heard, there's this whole idea that as children, they're more open to these things. They haven't been filtered. They haven't been, you're not told these things aren't really there. You know what I mean? You're more likely to see things. And now being an adult who never in my life was told that these things aren't there has just left me so open to whatever can happen, to whatever. I accept it for what it is, and when it doesn't happen, I accept that too. But that in itself has allowed me to stay very connected to the field and just very unwilling to listen to anybody's stories, and I'm never going to pass judgment because it very well happened, and it very well happened exactly like you're saying. So for that reason, I think I've always been drawn and will always be drawn to the paranormal field.
Not everybody gets to follow in their parents' footsteps. Life is so complicated. There are so many different paths, avenues to take in life. Do you feel that you have a natural proclivity for this? Do you feel that this is a fascination that you've had lifelong, only because of what you were exposed to or experienced as a youngster? I guess there's really no way to answer it because you didn't live another way. But did it ever occur to you to be anything other than a paranormal investigator?
Yeah, it did. And actually, I'm actually a middle school history teacher. That is my job. That is my title. The paranormal field, while I've made a career and a life out of it in a sense, it was always not my plan B. It was always a hobby. It was always something I enjoyed. But to me, that's what it was. It was a hobby. It wasn't anything I'm going to go be on a television show and be in the paranormal field. That wasn't, will I teach, middle school or high school and go out on the weekends and investigate? Yes, always. That's always what I'll do. I've been lucky enough, like you said, to be given the opportunity to have those doors open that I do. And I'm a history teacher, so that portion of it fascinates me, and that's a big part of as to why I joined the show. I got to travel, I got to see these amazing things, meet these amazing people, and still have this paranormal connection, which is very important to me and I feel very passionate about. So it's, I don't know, I feel pretty lucky. I do. I don't want to sound too, giddy about it, but I do very much enjoy my life.
I'm not surprised that you gravitated toward history. In the same way that growing up at the farm, I wanted answers. I gravitated toward philosophy because I wanted to understand the big picture. And so much of the work that you do and that we do in paranormal research is delving into the history of properties to find out what spirits may or may not have been attached to the property. So it seems like a nice, perfect fit for you. You work, most teams have a historian on the team. Do you function in that respect with the work that you do?
I do. I very much, when we get ready to go on a location, I'm very much sent the name of the place and just the idea, the family that lives there, what are their names? What is some basic information that I might need to fill in any blanks that there are? Here's the address of the house. Here's the address of the business. I'm lucky enough through Pilgrim Films, which helps us with the show. They give me access to things like websites and genealogy and just archives, and they open up those doors easily for me. Which I would still figure out in my own way,
Sure.
But they're very much like, hey, listen, we're going to help you out. We'll send you a few websites we think might help you out. And I can do all my research and I can pull these things together and I can get newspaper articles that are relevant and I can bring them to the team and say, this is what I have. This is, as we're driving up, this is information that I have about the location. And sometimes they air those things, sometimes they don't. That's not, sadly I don't get to pick what they show in every episode, but I do that. I like to present with information we might not have. This going in, this is what we know as far as claims are, this is what they wrote to us and said the issues are, and I did research, and this is some stuff we might want to know walking in. This is what this place used to be. This is who used to live here. These are deaths that happened on location. Just take that into consideration, and sometimes it helps out in the end. Sometimes, EVPs we get or things that happen, experiences that are had, in the end we can say, well, that's really odd because when we did that background research, even though the family never experienced something like that, there's a connection here. Maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
I think it's interesting that, a lot of it, there seems to be an even split with, I know so many numerous teams around the country, and some want to go in blind and not know anything until after the fact. So see if they can correlate what their experiences were with the actual history of the house. Others want the full, complete history before they go in. What's your take on that? What would be your preference?
It's definitely a case-by-case situation. If we're going into an old business, or this building has been standing for hundreds of years, and these are their claims, and these are their, this is what we know is going on. Okay, let's pull up some information beforehand. Let's pull up debts on the property. But if we're going into a brand new development of houses, and this family's saying these are things we're experiencing, let's go investigate and see what's happening. At the end of this, let's sit down and figure out what used to be there. Let's not put in consideration what this property used to be, because that's not what it is anymore. Let's deal with the family, deal with they're individually experiencing, because it might have to do with them or something in their house and not the property. But if at the end there are things that we question that doesn't make any sense to them, let's go back. Let's go back and figure out what used to be here, because it's not really adding up. So it definitely is a case-by-case situation as far as I'm concerned. Other teams can approach it with whatever way they feel fit.
What's one of your most memorable experiences on location?
On a location. You always have the little experiences that, individually they're nothing big. In the long run, you can say, oh, this has happened to me, this has The doors closing, the disembodied voices that you heard without a recorder, the immediate responses, those things all add up to being just great in general. But going back to about 2008, there was a convention, TAPSCon, that took place in Clearwater, Florida, I believe. And it was a convention my dad held, and it was at a hotel. And I had an experience there where I ran into something. Dad had been investigating the night prior, and he was just doing investigations through the hotel. And he stepped away one night, was feeling ill, and I went on the investigation. And lucky enough, I went with a Blue Oyster Cult, the band.
Yeah.
It was a really cool, number one, that was a good thing in itself.
Yeah.
But over the course of the investigation, it got a little strange. And at one point, I heard my dad's voice. And I got the full first and middle name, the full Samantha Alexis, you are not supposed to be over here. And I responded, well, you never told me to. You told me this is where I have to go. I mean, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. And that was that. There was nothing else. And we decided at that point maybe there was a reason we shouldn't be over there, but Dad wasn't there. There was nowhere Dad was. And left the location, went and found him. He was still sick in bed. I mean, did something correlate me and him? Was there a situation that I could have gotten hurt? Was it a bad part of the building to be in, as far as structure, or was something trying to help me? Dad was sick and in bed. Was he somehow informing me that there was your mind just goes, and it's to this day one of those questions I can't answer. And it has never happened again. I've never heard his voice when he wasn't there. But it was an odd moment. It was odd. And I think I'll always question it. Unless it happens again and I get that answer right away, I'm always going to question it. And it was just so loud and so there. I don't know. I don't know. It still confuses me.
Interesting though, huh? Yes.
It was great.
It'll give you something to think about when you run out of other things to think about.
Exactly.
I know about the head spinning 1,000 miles an hour, 24/7. I get that completely. And I think that part of that is that we are so open, that we're not relegated to the illusion of a three-dimensional, five-sensory realm. We know there is something more. And having been raised that way, having known from the age of 12 that there's something beyond our mortal existence, it expands human consciousness, and a mind expanded cannot contract. So therefore, expect to live lifelong with this going on forever and ever. You can adjust to it, and I'll give you one little key. If you can't sleep at night, put it on the Weather Channel, turn it down real low. It'll counteract everything else that's going on, and coma. There you go.
Good. I don't sleep very much.
I find you absolutely delightful. You're incredibly intelligent, incredibly articulate. It's really a pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I will in the future be contacting you again to do more media, because I think that you are the bright, fresh face of the paranormal. This is a field that is burgeoning. Your dad and friends and company had so much to do with that, but it's up to the next generation to take the reins. And there are no experts in this field. So, we're all finding our way in the dark. But to know that somebody like you has such a bright light gives me a lot of hope.
Thank you. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you. The movie was about their case files, but even Mrs. Warren said they didn't stick to what she wrote about it. They conjured up their own story. Okay. Which is unfortunate, but at least I know that my real story is out in the world. Right. And so that's took 7 years of my life to write it.